Introducing our next young and vibrant speaker, Ms. Mahima Rao. Passionate about the intersection of finance and engineering, she's driven to explore how these fields can foster innovation. Mahima wishes to take us on a journey into art of perspective, helping us see the world through new lenses and explore how our viewpoints shape our understanding. Please join me in welcoming Mahima Rao with a huge round of applause.
I'm sure many of you are familiar with the movie Frozen, but for those of you who aren't, it's the story of a young girl, Elsa, who was born with magical powers she could neither control nor understand. As a child, she accidentally hurt her younger sister Anna, and at that moment, her world changed. She shut herself off from everyone, her family, her people, and even herself, convinced that her powers were a curse. It was years later, after the unfortunate passing of her parents, that she was thrust into the public eye at her coronation, and her deepest fears were realized. She was forced to flee the kingdom after she accidentally lost control of her powers, and the kingdom was left in turmoil. It wasn't until the iconic moment of the movie, where she escapes into the snow-capped mountains and sings Let It Go, that she learns how to truly embrace her true self, powers and all. This was her turning point. In the end, Elsa became the queen she was always meant to be. The kingdom went from seeing her as a cold, isolated person to seeing her as a powerful leader. So, what changed to take her from this isolated person to a beloved ruler? What took her from fearful to confident? What freed her from the clutches of self-doubt and made her the powerful role model so many young girls look up to? It was perception. It was others' perception of her, but more importantly, it was her perception of herself. By the end of the movie, Elsa hadn't changed. Her powers were the same, but her relationship to them was different. She learned how to truly accept herself, and in doing so changed not only how she saw herself, but how the world saw her. This journey teaches us something fundamental. The way we see ourselves shapes how others see us. And that lens, that perception through which we view the world around us and ourselves, holds incredible power, and it can truly alter the course of our lives. But what exactly do I mean when I say perception? Perception, derived from the Latin word percipere, means the way in which something is understood, regarded, or interpreted. It's a simple word, but it holds a great significance. The way we perceive things has true power to change our lives. You might be thinking right now, this is just a fictional story. What relevance could this really have to us in the real world? Well, there's a science behind perception and the impact it has on all of us. We all make snap-second judgments all the time. Based on our first meeting of a person, whether it is for 30 seconds or 30 minutes, we form an opinion or a perception of that person. And that perception shapes how we see their later actions. This is because of a psychological phenomenon called the primary effect. Due to this, the first information we receive about a person has a disproportionately large impact on our overall perception of them. The human brain has a tendency to prioritize initial data over later data. This is why they say you only get one first impression, so make it count. These initial interactions shape people's long-term view of us, and in social settings and in job interviews, it can make or break our future opportunities. The recency effect, on the other hand, does allow the brain to remember more recent information, which means that change in perception, while faced with resistance, is possible. But if we look at a scenario like a job interview, you have 15 minutes maybe to meet with the person, answer their questions, and show them why you deserve the position. If you are not able to project the image of the confident, talented, capable individual you are, you will not get the job. It doesn't matter what qualities you have inside you, but it matters whether or not you're able to match that with others' perception of you. This image you project to the outside world does matter. This has been a challenge I have faced in my personal life. I have faced obstacles with being denied opportunities simply because of preconceptions rather than merit. And it's a stark reminder of how powerful yet limiting a perception can be. However, there's a flip side to this. Perceptions can have a positive effect as well. They can be a force for good. This is where the halo effect comes into play. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where a single positive trait influences our overall perception of a person. A study by Edward Thorndike found that military officers rated soldiers more highly across all categories simply because they excelled in one area. Essentially, if we like a certain thing about a person, such as their empathy, their friendliness, their intelligence, we're more likely to assume they have other positive traits as well. This influences our perception of people in ways we don't even realize. It goes to show how a simple thing like saying good morning to your teachers can truly shift their overall perception of you. But let's look at a real example of this. A celebrated athlete who has since unfortunately passed away, Kobe Bryant. In the early 2000s, his public image was tarnished. He was seen as selfish, arrogant, and divisive. His fight with Shaquille O'Neal caused many people to question his leadership, and public opinion of him was at an all-time low. This was a defining moment for him, a make-or-break point in his career, so to speak. The US men's basketball team had not won the Olympic gold in a while. This led to the creation of the 2008 team, dubbed the Redeem Team. They were on a mission to restore basketball glory to the country. At this point, people still viewed Kobe with a lot of animosity. However, after becoming a part of the team, he showed an unparalleled level of dedication and hard work, showing that he was not just a player, but a leader. His transformation from a perceived lone wolf to that of a leader of a gold medal winning team is an example of how perception can shape opportunities and outcomes. People's appreciation for Bryant's dedication caused a sort of spillover effect, which improved perception of him within the NBA, amongst fans, analysts, and everyone else. It was by recognizing what others' perception of him was and demonstrating that self-awareness through actions that he was able to create a legacy of not just championships, but leadership and selflessness. So what do we learn from this story? First impressions have lasting impacts, but they are not set in stone. We can transform the negative into the positive with dedication and hard work. Kobe did this, creating a lasting change, both personally and publicly. And this change starts with recognizing how we're perceived and acting on it. This once again goes to show the true power that perception holds. This is something that I always personally struggled with. Being the younger sister of an overachiever, I always felt overshadowed and less than. She was an MYPC student who excelled in sports, classical music, academics, and virtually every other field. It wasn't anything anyone else said or did. It was just how I saw myself. I thought that I was second best, not good enough, and that's the self-perception I had. This self-doubt was at its peak when I had to write an exam I truly dreaded, the SAT. I was told by everyone around me how important this was for my universities, for my future, and it stressed me out. I felt overwhelmed, and I didn't have any self-confidence. But when I took mock after mock after mock, the scores on the screen disheartened me. It was nowhere near where it needed to be. It wasn't until I was able to change my perception of self and get rid of that inferiority complex that I was able to see a rise in that score. It wasn't magic. It was a change in the way I viewed myself. There are several studies on self-efficacy, specifically those by Albert Bandura, which show how the power of belief in abilities has a true correlation to success. This is because the more you believe in your abilities, the more likely you are to put in the work to persist, despite any obstacles you may face. Students with high efficacy are proven to have better grades academically just because they move past the failures and the setbacks which they might face. So, when I changed my perception of self, it wasn't just a change in mindset. It was a change in how I approach challenges, and I changed myself to become more confident and more willing to go on despite any struggles. So, how do we change our self-perception? This is not an easy process. It takes time, commitment, and a willingness to embrace growth. Yet, it is this shift in perception that fundamentally unlocks our ability to succeed in life. So let me share with you 3 simple steps for how we can start to improve our perception of self. Firstly, visualize your best self. What does your best self look like? What qualities do you have that other people don't really see? Once you have a vision of who you want to be, you will have a roadmap of how to get there. Next is to take action with small, achievable steps. Big goals like an exam or a career milestone can seem daunting, but when you break it down into simple steps, it becomes so much easier. For me with the SAT, I had to break it down into small little things each day, like clearing my workspace or making a study schedule, and these slowly built up my confidence, and I started to feel more and more in control. It's important to remember that changing your self-perception is a long-term goal. It's much like a marathon. The smaller milestones add up for the ultimate victory. Lastly, it's very important to celebrate your progress. Every step you take towards improving your perception of self matters. Don't wait until you've quote-unquote arrived to be happy about what you've done. This celebration helps reinforce your belief in yourself and prove that you are on the right path. So remember this, people can't read your mind. They form their perception of you based on what they see and what they hear. If you can't convince yourself of your worth, you'll be hard-pressed to convince others of it. Your self-perception is a mirror of how others will see you. So as you leave here today, remember this. You are in control of your perception, both how others view you and how you view yourself. Take control of your perception and use its power to shape the life that you want. Ask yourself this: who do you want to be? And starting today, what will you do to change the way you see yourself? Thank you.